Before listen, lock your door.
Subscribe for daily horror story.
First story.
My uncle used to say, if you ever hear 3 knocks in the woods, and no one's around, don't knock back, no matter what. I always thought it was just one of his creepy campfire stories, the kind adults used to scare kids from wandering too far into the trees. But that was before. I spent a night near the old fire tower in Randolph County. It was October 1996. I was 17, cocky, reckless, and convinced that anything paranormal was just a story to sell books or scare tourists. My cousin Ricky and I were hiking a section of the Appalachian Trail. It was something we did every fall, but that year we decided to go off-route. Ricky had read online about an old, abandoned fire lookout tower deep in the woods. No trail, signs, not on any map. Just a rusted landmark, mostly forgotten. We found it near dusk. It stood like a dead thing among the trees, its metal frame rusted and skeletal, reaching into the cloudy sky. No markers, no graffiti, just silence. The staircase up was twisted and uneven, and the hatch to the top was sealed shut, rusted at the hinges. We pitched our tent at its base, figuring we'd explore it in the morning. But even before the sun fully set, something felt wrong. The woods there were off. Still, but not peaceful, quiet in a way that made your ears ring. No crickets, no wind, just a kind of pressure in the air, like the forest was holding its breath. Around midnight, I heard it. 3 knocks, not on the tent, on the fire tower above us. Sharp, evenly spaced, deliberate. I thought Ricky was screwing with me. I unzipped the tent, whispering sharply for him to quit it, but he was still lying beside me, eyes wide and face drained of color. That wasn't you. We stared at each other, the silence between us somehow louder than the knocks had been. And again, knock, 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 but slower this time, and closer. Neither of us moved. I couldn't even tell if I was breathing. Then came a sound I'll never forget, something scraping against the outer wall of the tower. A dry metallic drag, like claws on rusted steel. And then, footsteps, slow, measured, climbing the tower stairs. We could hear each step, one by one, echoing through the thin metal. Not rushing, not cautious, just confident. We counted the steps. Then, nothing. No final step. No retreat, just stillness. Ricky leaned toward me and whispered, "Should we check?" I shook my head without even thinking. My body knew better than my brain. Eventually, maybe from pure exhaustion or fear-induced numbness, we both drifted into a fitful sleep. When we woke up, the hatch above the one that had been rusted shut the night before was wide open, gaping into the sky. We hadn't touched it. Something had. We didn't speak. We just started packing in silence. But as I moved around the base of the tower, something caught my eye. Etched into the metal siding low, near the base, was a message. Not scratched hastily, but carved, with something sharp and deliberate. "Why didn't you knock back?" I told myself it was a prank. Some disturbed backpacker with a twisted sense of humor and a lot of free time. But 2 nights later, it happened. Again, we were further south, sleeping in one of the wooden trail shelters. No roof hatch this time. Just a single doorway and no one else around for miles. And just past midnight, it came again. Knock, 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 this time. From the door, I sat up, heart pounding, and looked to Ricky's sleeping bag, empty. I called his name. No answer. I stepped outside. No footprints. No sign of struggle. No note. No gear missing. Just ... gone. When I turned back to the shelter, there was something written on the wooden wall in ash, drawn across the planks, like a warning. He knocked back. No one ever found him. Rangers searched for weeks. Nothing. No signs. No clues. It was like he'd never been there. I never went back to the trail. Never even packed a bag again. But sometimes on cold nights, when the wind dies down, I still hear it. 3 knocks. Even when I'm alone. even far from the woods. So if you ever hear it too, don't knock back, don't call out, don't even breathe, because whatever's out there, it remembers, and it's still waiting.
Second story.
My grandmother used to say, if you ever hear music out in the woods where there shouldn't be any, don't follow it, especially not in these mountains. I always thought she was just being superstitious. The kind of old mountain wisdom passed down through ghost stories and warnings meant to keep kids close to home. But that summer near Hollow Creek changed everything, I believed. I was 19 and working for a conservation program doing trail maintenance across eastern Kentucky. Our crew rotated through temporary cabins tucked miles into the hills, where we cleared fallen limbs, repainted trail markers, and rerouted sections damaged by erosion or storms. Most nights were peaceful, just the steady hum of cicadas, the occasional hoot of an owl, and wind brushing through the trees like a lullaby. That week, I got assigned solo duty. The rest of the crew had been diverted to deal with a mudslide near the main road, and I was sent to check on some old half-yearsed footpaths near Hollow Creek trails, so overgrown they barely existed anymore. I didn't mind the solitude, in fact, I welcomed it. But by the second night alone, something started to feel off. That's when I heard it. It started faint, barely louder than the wind. Music. Not the kind anyone around here plays these days. This was old fiddle music, slow and deliberate, the kind you'd imagine echoing off the walls of a barn dance 2 centuries ago. It had a strange twangy rhythm, as if the air itself was resisting every note. There were no campsites nearby, no cabins, no vehicles, just thick forest ridgelines and silence. So where was it coming from? The first night, I stood frozen, listening. The sound wasn't frightening, exactly, but it felt wrong, like finding a lit candle in a house that's been abandoned for years. By the third night, the music returned, louder now, clearer. I could hear the fiddle strings creaking under pressure, bending unnaturally, each note dragging like it was being pulled uphill through molasses. Then I heard the laughter, soft, weightless laughter, feminine, melodic. It didn't echo like normal sounds in the woods. It seemed to move between the trees, coming from nowhere and everywhere all at once. I grabbed the radio and called it in. HQ said no one was supposed to be in my sector, told me to stay indoors and lock up until they could investigate in the morning. But I couldn't sit still. Something about that melody gripped me like a hook had sunk into my brain and was reeling me in. I wasn't afraid. I was compelled. So I laced up my boots, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped outside. I followed the sound across the ridge, stumbling over roots and slick moss-covered rocks, deeper and deeper into unfamiliar terrain. Then, without warning, I stepped into a clearing I swear hadn't been on any map, and I saw her. She stood barefoot in the grass, wearing a pale, soaked dress that clung to her like it had just rained, except the sky was bone dry. Her back was to me, arms slowly swaying as she spun in wide, graceful circles. Every motion matched the beat of that invisible music. Her movements weren't wild or chaotic, they were practiced, elegant. Like a dancer repeating a centuries-old routine. Her hair was long and dark, matted to her spine like riverweed. She hadn't noticed me yet, and still, there was no source for the sound. No speaker, no instrument, just the melody thick in the air, vibrating in my chest like it came from inside me. Then she stopped spinning, and turned. Her face was all wrong, like it had been molded out of something soft, then pressed too hard against glass. Her features were human, but distorted. Her eyes too wide, her mouth too still, her skin pale as wax. She didn't open her mouth, but somehow I heard her speak clear and close as a whisper in my ear. Stay, dance. I didn't hesitate. I turned and ran, branches snapping against my legs, thorns tearing at my clothes. I don't know how I made it back. I just kept running until I saw the glow of my cabin. I slammed the door shut, threw a table in front of it, and stood there shaking until sunrise. The music was gone, like it had never been there at all. But in the morning, something was waiting for me, pinned to my cabin door with a rusted nail was a strip of pale, damp cloth. It looked torn from a dress. 4 words were smeared on it in dried mud. You stopped the song. I packed my bags and left that same afternoon. Never returned. Didn't tell HQ a thing. A year later, I heard that one of the new workers went missing near the same sector. Last seen heading toward the ridge above Hollow Creek. The only thing they found were his boots sitting neatly side by side at the edge of a clearing. This time, the message left behind was different. He danced. Too long. So if you ever find yourself deep in the Appalachian woods, and you hear music drifting from somewhere it shouldn't, don't follow it. Don't listen. Don't even pause to wonder. Because something out there is still waiting, still playing, and it's always looking for someone to finish the song.
Third story.
My uncle used to warn me, if you ever see a lantern swinging on Crow's Hollow Ridge, turn around. That's not someone you want to meet. I used to laugh it off. I thought it was just one of those old backwoods warnings folks passed around for fun, but then I saw the light for myself. It was the fall of 1991, the kind of October where the leaves burn deep crimson and the whole forest looks like it's bleeding from the trees. I was 22, working seasonal maintenance with the Forest Service, assigned to a remote section of southern West Virginia, old coal country, forgotten roads, rotting cabins swallowed by vines. Places where you could walk a whole day and never see another soul, only the trees shifting like they were whispering just beneath the wind. That afternoon, I'd been sent to inspect and flag hazards along a trail near a disused coal road, more than a scar through the forest. Locals called the place Crow's Hollow Ridge, though no one could tell me why. Maybe it was the birds, or maybe it was the way the wind there always seemed to carry voices that didn't belong. I had about 2 hours of light left when I parked the truck and set out on foot. All I brought was my survey pack, a half-full thermos of coffee, and my headlamp just in case the light faded early. I figured I'd check the path, jot some notes, be back at the truck before dusk. But dusk came too fast. Maybe 30 minutes in, I reached a bend overlooking a dry creek bed. That's when I saw it, a soft orange glow, flickering gently through. The trees not too steady to be a fire, too warm to be an LED. It was a lantern, a single old-style lantern, swaying like it was being carried, but there were no footsteps, no rustling, nothing but silence. At first, I assumed it was another ranger, or maybe an old hunter, heading back to some hidden shack. But the light wasn't moving anymore. It just hovered, right where the trees grew thickest, where even daylight didn't. Reach Dot, I called out. Hello, you all right out there? No answer. I raised my voice. Still nothing. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the lantern blinked out, gone like a flame snuffed by invisible fingers. I stood frozen for what felt like a full minute, staring into the dark trees where the light had been. And then, the air shifted. A smell hit me, sharp, chemical, and rotting all at once, like burnt motor oil soaked into a dead animal. My eyes started to water. My throat clenched up. Every part of me screamed to turn back, to leave, but I didn't. I told myself it had to be something left over from the mining days. Maybe runoff from an old shaft, maybe sulfur. So I stepped forward, just 20 feet deeper. That's when I saw it. Dot, a figure tall, motionless, standing between 2 trees, backlit by nothing, but clearly outlined against the trunks. It was maybe 7 feet tall, with long limbs and a cloak or coat that dragged across the forest floor. One arm hung unnaturally low. The other held something. The lantern. It didn't move, didn't blink, didn't make a sound. Then, without a spark, without a flicker, the lantern lit itself. Just on. like a switch had flipped somewhere deep inside it, and as it raised the light, I saw its face. No cloak, that was skin, gray-green, thin as stretched, plastic bone visible beneath, eyes too wide, completely black, and faintly glowing like coals about to die, and its mouth long, crooked, parted just slightly like it wasn't built to speak, but wanted to try. I stumbled backward, dropped my thermos. The metal hitting stone shattered the silence like a gunshot. The thing tilted its head, not startled, just curious, like it had been waiting for me to break the stillness. Then it stepped forward soundless, and the stench doubled. Sulfur, wet decay, burned metal. My legs finally moved. I ran. Branches tore at me. Rocks bruised my ankles. I didn't stop. Not once. I didn't fumble for the keys when I reached the truck. I dove inside, slammed the door, locked it, and didn't look back. But as I drove away, headlights bouncing along the gravel road, I kept glancing at the trees. And twice, just briefly, saw it again. That faint orange glow, pacing me through the forest. Always just out of reach. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my apartment with every light on, listening for creaking wood or flickering glass. The next morning, I filed my report. I left out the lantern, left out the smell, left out the thing, just said the trail was clear. Weeks later, I ran into Hank, an old ranger who'd worked the territory back in the 70s. I casually mentioned crows. Hollow Ridge. He went quiet, looked me over, then asked, like someone testing for damage, "You didn't see the light, did you?" I didn't answer. He just handed me a dented silver flask and said, "Next time, turn around." I never went back, but sometimes, on windless nights, I still see the lantern in my dreams, swinging slow and steady, just beyond the bedroom window. And the worst part, there's never a hand holding it. Warning: if you ever see a lantern swinging deep in the Appalachian woods, don't follow it. Don't assume it's a guide, because sometimes it's not trying to help you find your way. It's trying to find you.